Oh hey, didn't see you there. Welcome to another Crash Course video.
French aristocrat Marquis de Condorcet had not voted to execute the French king, and his life had been in danger as a result. His last years show the harsh downside of politics in modern Europe, but the hope for better things to come. The Age of Revolution, a period of political upheaval beginning roughly with the American Revolution and continuing on with the French Revolution, was fueled by intellectual challenge, commercial growth, and population pressure. Western Europe experienced a huge population jump after 1730, called the Population Revolution. It was caused by a reduced movement of disease-bearing animals and improved nutrition, leading to a reduced death rate and therefore an increase in the birth rate. Enlightenment thinkers challenged regimes that did not grant full religious freedom or that insisted on aristocratic privilege, and few called for widespread popular voice in government. Business people gaining new wealth challenged the idea that aristocrats alone should hold the highest political offices. By the late 18th century, it became harder for anyone who wasn't an aristocrat to gain a high position in church or state, causing demands for change by other groups and working class. Population growth prompted a rapid expansion of domestic manufacturing in Western Europe and the US, which was called the proto-industrialization. There was also an impact of behavior in society, like an increase of premarital sex, parental authority decline, and an increase in youthful independence and new defiance to authority. British Atlantic colonies rebelled in 1775. It was primarily a war for independence rather than a full-fledged revolution. A large minority of American colonists resisted Britain's attempt to control them. In the American Revolution, colonial rebels set up a new government that issued a Declaration of Independence. Persistence, British military blunders, and aid from the French led to their freedom. A new constitution based on Enlightenment principles. That doesn't sound conversation. The French Revolution was comprised of Enlightenment thinkers urging the limitations of the Roman Catholic Church, the aristocrats, and the monarchy. The French government and the upper class proved too incapable of reform, and a sharp economic slump set the revolution. The French king called the meeting of the traditional parliament, but middle-class representatives turned it into a modern parliament based on representation. The Declaration of Rights of Man and the Citizen enacted natural rights to liberty, property, security, resistance to oppression, and freedom of expression of ideas.
Even though the United States of America plays a key role in world history right now, back in the colonial times they didn't, because they had not accomplished many things. Later on, things like the Louisiana Purchase, the acquisition of Texas, and the rush of California symbolize how much America has grown. Now, the crucial event for the United States of America was the Civil War, because the North fought the South due to the fact that they needed to settle their differences and make sure that everyone was treated the way they were supposed to. During World War I, the major European nations came together to form an alliance. One of the groups was the Triple Alliance, which included Germany, Austria, and Italy. Then there's the Triple Entente, which included Britain, Russia, and France, which was kind of fair, because it was like 3v3. One thing that we're not thinking about is like the internal problems that they have in their countries. The Balkan nationalism threatened Austria because of its large Slav population, and small fights like this one triggered what we know as the First World War. During World War One, it was really hard for nations to decide who they were going to ally with, because the power and status of a nation could change easily. Just imagine it like it's the first day of high school. You have to choose your friends. It kind of feels like that. The only difference is that their decision is a little bit more deadly. Because the Germans were really scared of the socialists, they believed that the best way to aid national unity was war.
The Allies that brought down the French met at Vienna in 1815, forming the Congress of Vienna. The diplomats here tried to restore a balance of power and created strong powers around France. Prussia gained power in Germany, Piedmont gained power in northern Italy, Britain gained new territory around the world, and Russia maintained control over Poland. By this time, however, industrial developments led to direct unrest among the factory workers and among artisans who worried about the future of skilled labor. They then generated a new movement called the Chartist movement, which hoped that a democratic government would regulate new technologies while promoting popular education. By the 1850s, the industrial class structure became predominant, with reduced aristocratic privileges due to earlier revolutions. After the 1850s, industrial society developed more fully and contained new family and leisure patterns. Infrastructure gradually improved as railroads and canals linked cities across Europe and spurred urbanization and industrialization. City governments began to address the issues that arose with growth. Sanitation improved, death rates fell below birth rates for the first time in urban history, the regulation of food and housing facilities became more efficient, and crime rates began to stabilize and even drop in several industrial areas. This all signified the increased social control and the more disciplined population. The industrial life led to healthier family life, with kids being the sources of emotional satisfaction, not just workers adding to the familial income. There was better health for the kids, where less than 10% died before the age of 10. The discovery of germs by Louis Pasteur furthered the sanitary regulations and procedures by healthcare professionals. Corporations also rose with a higher appearance of stock-run companies and labor unions. Furthermore, the farmer life improved and farmers developed stable crops and cooperatives to sell goods and purchase supplies more efficiently. By the 1850s, governments began to reform key issues such as voting rights, freedom of religion, and the conservation of the wealth of the old, to avoid further revolutions. They also began to promote active foreign policy, since people tend to forget about domestic issues when the empire is busy expanding. Count Camillo di Cavour of the Italian state of Piedmont allied with France to unite most of Italy. Following his example, Otto von Bismarck of Prussia forced conflicts with other nations to unify the German people and defeat France in 1871, creating the New Germany.
The West starts to have civil exams like China, except the West was 1,000 years later. LMFAO. With the new school, rates of literacy increase, and the schools preach nationalism like language, history, and minorities and immigrant cultures. Welfare programs are introduced to help old, injured, and the unemployed. The real social question is not political or economic, but social equality. Then in turn, the middle class defeats the aristocracy. Feminist movements arise which lead to equal access to employment, education, and the right to vote. Better wages and reduced hours for people results in more leisure time. Factories made lots of cheap goods, which made advertisements more common and introduced a bicycle trend in the 1880s. Newspapers changed to accommodate a new era of readers interested in stories of crime, sports, comics, corruption, and violence. Other sources of entertainment also become more popular, such as live comedy and music. More resorts grow as well. Team sports grew the commercial industry with reintroduction of the Olympics in 1896. Rising prosperity led to more free time for scientific and artistic exploration. This means new improvements to medicine and agriculture. Science expands with Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, which adds notion of time. Theories of human subconscious to explain human behavior are realized by Sigmund Freud. Humans become obsessed with statistics for all sorts of things, such as causes of poverty and behavior of crowds and business cycles. Charles Darwin's Origin of Species right. He observes that animals and plants evolve over time from earlier time and that nature worked through struggles thrown at it. But the church did not like what Darwin was doing because it conflicted with religious doctrines. Speaking of this, let's go to our mystery document.
This is our mystery object. Now it's time for the open letter. Dear Charles Darwin, you looked at many birds. Although you've provided many scientific contributions, the main thing that I personally admire is your beard. Best wishes, Juan Verde.